Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are really opening up a kind of blueprint, I think, for financial and maybe even more importantly, personal sovereignty. It's a framework that argues success isn't just about, you know, luck or timing the market perfectly. It's about disciplined execution of some very human variables.
Exactly. We're diving deep into the Algebra of Wealth, which is Scott Galloway's system for building wealth. And crucially, he defines wealth not just as piling up money, but as gaining freedom, control, and real choice over your life.
Right, and that distinction feels key. That's what makes this compelling, I think.
It is. Our mission today is to unpack this formula piece by piece. You know, Galloway isn't just an academic. He's an NYU Stern professor, sure, but also a serial entrepreneur. He's seen massive success, but also some pretty brutal failures.
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from those.
No, he doesn't. And that experience informs this equation he offers. It's battle-tested. He's really trying to shift the conversation away from just, say, budgeting tips or guessing the next hot stock.
Towards something more foundational.
Towards building a life where you call the shots. He gives us the variables, the algebra, as he calls it, to actually achieve that kind of freedom.
I really like that focus on freedom. It brings a human element to finance, which can often feel, well, pretty cold and clinical, can it?
Totally. Instead of just chasing a number in a spreadsheet, you're chasing the ability to say no to things you genuinely don't want to do and yes to the things that matter to you.
It's like lifestyle design, but with really high stakes.
You could put it that way. And he argues that this kind of lasting wealth, this freedom, it isn't usually from one big lucky break. It's the compounded result of mastering 10 core principles, 10 pillars that are all interconnected.
And these are just suggestions, are they? He presents them more like variables in your personal equation.
That's exactly it. They determine your outcome.
Okay, so we're going to walk through all 10. We'll try to dissect the psychological hurdles involved, but also the practical, tactical steps you need to take.
Sounds good.
So, for everyone listening, here's the map for our deep dive today. We start with the foundations: focus, stoicism, and time.
Discipline and leverage, really.
Right. Then we get into the multipliers: ownership and education, how you earn and grow. And then we wrap up with protection, the mechanisms, and maybe the most important part, the meaning. Diversification, understanding the mass of money, resilience, hustle, and finally, love and purpose.
It's a comprehensive blueprint.
It really is. So let's try to transform these ideas from abstract concepts into, hopefully, a practical guide for you. All right, let's begin where, honestly, any big achievement has to start: focus. Galloway calls this the foundational superpower, and he's pretty blunt about it. If you can't focus, you can't win. Why is focus so critical? The absolute linchpin.
Well, because building wealth, real wealth, it's inherently a long game, right?
Yeah.
It demands consistent effort directed at high leverage activities. Focus is really the only thing that guards your most precious resources: your time, your energy, your attention, against what he calls productive feeling fragmentation.
Ooh, that's a great phrase. Productive feeling fragmentation.
Isn't it? We live in an economy, an environment really, that's almost designed to shatter our focus. Every notification ping, every optional meeting invite, every email that doesn't really need a reply right now.
They all feel productive in the moment.
Exactly. They feel like work, but they pull resources away from the very few things that actually move the needle, the things that compound over time.
I think we've all been there. You have a day where you're just ticking boxes, crossing things off the list, feeling super busy.
Yeah, you feel exhausted but satisfied.
Right. Only to look up at 5 p.m. and realize, uh-oh, none of those little tasks actually advanced my biggest, most important goal. Not one bit.
That's the trap. That's the drain he's talking about. So to fight this, Galloway insists you need absolute clarity about your priorities, and then you have to make some really hard choices. This is where he brings in that Warren Buffett method, the 5-25 rule.
Yes, the 5-25 rule. It sounds simple, almost deceptively so, but actually doing it is, well, it's tough. Can you break down how it really works?
Sure. So you start by listing, say, the 25 most important things you want to achieve. These could be professional goals, personal ones, whatever matters most to you over the next few years.
Okay, get it all down on paper.
Then you go through that list and circle the top 5. Just 5. These 5 become your absolute non-negotiable mission. This is where your primary focus goes.
All right, that part makes sense. Prioritize.
But here's the crucial step, the one most people skip or ignore. The other 20 goals on your list, and remember, these are probably good, worthwhile things you genuinely want to do.
Yeah, they made the top 25 list for a reason.
Exactly. You must now actively avoid these 20 things. They aren't your maybe later list or your secondary projects. Galloway argues they are the most dangerous distractions precisely because they are compelling. They're tempting enough to siphon off significant time and energy without actually contributing to your top 5.
Wow, okay, so it redefines sacrifice. It's not just cutting out obvious bad habits, it's ruthlessly cutting out good opportunities that stop you from achieving truly great results on those top 5.
That's the essence of it, ruthless prioritization.
But let me push back on that a bit, just for practicality. If you're in a, say, traditional job, how do you realistically actively avoid 20 perfectly reasonable things, some of which might even be assigned to you by your boss, without, getting fired or damaging your career?
That's a fair and necessary challenge. And Galloway sort of addresses this. It's less about a flat no to the task itself, perhaps, and more about aggressively managing the time and energy commitment that task demands.
Okay, how so?
If your manager hands you tasks that fall into those dangerous 20, your focus shifts. Can you automate part of it? Can you delegate it? Can you drastically limit the time you spend on it? Maybe deliver the bare minimum required to ensure your top 5 still get, say, 80% of your best energy.
So it becomes a negotiation almost, a negotiation for your time.
Exactly. It forces you to constantly evaluate, does this task directly serve one of my top 5 goals? If the answer is no, then your internal response needs to be either a carefully negotiated no, or at least a heavily time-boxed, minimized yes.
Okay, that makes sense. It starts with knowing where your time is actually going. He suggests doing a time audit.
Yes, and awareness can be, frankly, terrifying,
Right.
but it's step 1. You have to track where your hours actually go, not where you fondly imagine they go.
Right.
The source material mentions this startling stat. The average person apparently touches their phone over 2,600 times a day.
2,600.
Seriously, that number just paints a picture of the constant, almost involuntary microfragmentation we live with. You simply cannot achieve deep, meaningful focus if you're perpetually reacting to the next buzz or notification.
That stat alone is a wake-up call. Okay, so the practical steps he recommends for reclaiming focus are pretty aggressive then. It's about noise reduction.
Yeah, these aren't gentle suggestions. They're more like surgical cuts. We're talking about deleting non-essential apps, especially the time sinks like social media feeds and news aggregators.
Get him off the phone entirely.
And muting almost all notifications. If it doesn't directly help you do your most important work, silence it. Then you have to embrace time blocking. Schedule specific blocks for deep, uninterrupted work, and treat those blocks like you would a critical meeting with your CEO, utterly non-negotiable.
Protect that time fiercely.
And critically, you have to master the art of saying no. Learn to say it politely, strategically, but firmly. Every single no to something that drains your time, like a meeting with no clear agenda, or a request that doesn't align with your top 5, is actually a powerful yes to your own goals, to your own sovereignty.
And the last piece of this focus puzzle involves other people, doesn't it? He says to guard your inner circle.
Yes, because your social environment creates a kind of gravitational pull. If the people closest to you are constantly demanding attention, creating drama, or encouraging fragmented, low-value activities, they become a significant barrier to your focus.
It's hard to stay focused if everyone around you is pulling you off track.
Impossible, maybe. So, you need to consciously choose to spend time with people who elevate your ambition, who respect your need for focused work, who maybe even share that drive. Focus requires building a defensive perimeter, and that includes managing social influences.
Okay, so focus is the engine. But even with perfect focus, life happens, right? Things go wrong, which is why the second foundational pillar, Stoicism, is crucial. If focus is the engine, Stoicism sounds like the suspension system. It keeps the engine from rattling apart when you hit inevitable potholes.
That's a great analogy. It's about mastering emotional discipline. Galloway's take on Stoicism, specifically for wealth building, is very practical. It's about preventing emotional, usually short-sighted decisions from completely derailing your long-term strategy.
Like panic selling stocks when the market dips.
That's the classic example. The market drops 30%. The untrained, emotional investor freaks out, sells everything at the bottom, locks in huge losses, and basically destroys years of patient compounding.
While the
Stoic, or at least the emotionally disciplined investor, maintains their strategy. They see the market crash as an external event, separate from their internal plan. They might even see it as an opportunity. They adapt, perhaps, but they don't react out of fear.
That gap, that little space between the stimulus, the market crash, and the response hitting the sell button, That's where financial discipline lives or dies, isn't it?
Absolutely. That pause is everything. And Galloway uses a really potent personal example here. The failure of his first big venture, Red Envelope.
Right, the e-commerce company. And it wasn't a quiet fizzle, was it? It was a very public, probably quite humiliating collapse.
It was. Back in the dot-com boom, Red Envelope was flying high, a well-known brand. When the bubble burst, the company basically imploded, and he was pushed out by the board. It wasn't just a financial loss, it was a public smackdown, a career humiliation.
So how does Stoicism help him there?
Well, he talks about consciously applying this framework even then. He recognized the external event, the market crash, the board's decision was largely outside his control. But his internal response was entirely his to own. He actively chose to reframe the failure.
Oh.
Not as game over, not as a reflection of his permanent worth, but as a detour. A painful one, sure, but a detour. He saw it as incredibly valuable and credits expensive intelligence, like a real-world MBA earned under fire.
Learning from the wreckage.
Exactly. It sharpened his perspective, taught him brutal lessons, and ultimately, he says, became the setup for his next success, which was his company L2.
That reframing, turning failure into feedback, into intel, seems like a core Stoic practice. So what are the practical, maybe daily tools he suggests for building this kind of emotional shock absorber?
He focuses on things that create that crucial distance between yourself and the raw emotion. First, journaling.
Writing it down?
Yeah, just getting the chaos out of your head and onto paper. When you write down your fear, your anger, your anxiety, you externalize it. You shift from being the emotion to observing the emotion. And that observation allows for a more thoughtful, rational response instead of a knee-jerk reaction.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, meditation. Even just short, regular sessions. Meditation isn't necessarily about emptying your mind, but more about learning to observe your thoughts without judgment.
Like watching clouds drift by.
Exactly like that. You notice the anxious thought, the fearful thought, the distracting thought, but you recognize it's just a thought. It's not a command you have to obey. This practice strengthens that muscle of self-control, which is vital when external chaos like a market panic or a job loss inevitably hits your financial plan.
And the third tool is that reframing itself, making it an active practice.
Yes. Consciously practicing reframing failure, every setback, every investment that goes wrong, every professional misstep, it's just data. It's information. It's not a verdict on your character or your future. It's feedback to help you adjust your approach next time. The obstacle becomes the way forward, as the Stoics would say.
Okay, so that emotional discipline, that Stoicism, provides the stability and the patience needed for the third foundational pillar, which you mentioned might be the most powerful. Time.
Time. Galloway really hammers this home. Time isn't just a philosophical idea here. It's the ultimate compounding asset. It's pure mathematics.
And the math is pretty unforgiving, isn't it? Time, when you leverage it through compound interest, is way more important than how much money you start with. Delaying is literally the most expensive mistake you can make.
Absolutely. We have to really drive this point home with that classic illustration, the Alex and Ben example. It perfectly shows why starting early demolishes starting big. We need to actually look at the numbers.
Let's do it. So we have two hypothetical investors, Alex and Ben. Let's assume they both get a pretty standard, say, 8% annual return on their investments over the long run.
Okay, 8% return. Now, Alex starts early. She begins investing at age 20. She puts in $5,000 every single year, but only for 10 years. So from age 20 to age 30. Then she stops. Completely. Never invests another dime.
Okay, so Alex invests a total of $50,000, $5K by 10 years, and finishes by age 30.
Exactly. Now meet Ben. Ben waits. Maybe he's focusing on his career. Maybe he thinks he needs more money to start. He only begins investing at age 30, but he's diligent. He invests the same $5,000 a year, and he keeps going for 30 years straight, all the way until he turns 60.
So Ben invests a total of $150,000, 5K by 30 years. That's 3 times the total amount Alex put in.
3 times the capital invested. Logically, you'd think Ben, who invested way more money for way longer overall, would end up with a much bigger nest egg, right?
Yeah, seems obvious.
But it's not what happens. Because Alex started 10 years earlier, her initial $50,000 had a full extra decade to compound to earn returns on the returns already earned before Ben even started.
That 10-year head start is everything.
It's magic. The result, by the time they both reach age 60, is actually staggering. Alex, despite investing only a third of the money Ben did, ends up with a significantly larger fortune.
Wow, just from starting earlier.
She maximized the time variable, then maximized the capital variable later on, but the capital just couldn't catch up to the sheer power of those extra compounding cycles Alex gained in her 20s.
That really proves it, doesn't it? The most valuable financial lesson might just be start now. Every single day you wait to invest is a day of lost compound growth you can literally never get back, no matter how much more you try to save later.
It completely flips the script on financial priorities. It means that setting up small automatic investments into, say, a low-cost Roth IRA when you're 21 or 22 is potentially far more valuable than finally landing a six-figure salary at 35 if you haven't saved anything yet.
So how do we actually put this leverage of time into action? What are the steps?
First, it's a mental shift. You have to consciously move from seeking instant gratification to thinking in decades. Play the long game, except that real wealth building is slow and, frankly, kind of boring day to day.
Embrace the boring.
Embrace the boring. Second, you absolutely must interdict it. Automate your investments right away. Set up automatic transfers from your paycheck or plank account into your investment accounts like index funds or target date funds.
Why is automation so key?
Because it removes emotion and friction, it forces discipline. You pay yourself first before you can spend the money. It ensures consistency, and consistency is time's best friend for compounding.
Okay, automate and be consistent. And the ultimate aim?
The ultimate goal of leveraging time and compounding is to eventually accumulate enough passive income from your investments, not your labor, to buy back your time. That growing stream of passive income is the true currency of freedom. It's what allows you to eventually choose how you spend your days, rather than having your days dictated by the need for a paycheck. That's the ultimate prize.
Okay, foundation laid, focus, stoicism, time. Now let's talk multipliers, the things that help your wealth grow exponentially, not just linearly. Pillar number 4 is ownership.
Right. Ownership is the critical shift from being labor to becoming capital. Galloway is very direct here. Simply trading your hours for dollars, even a lot of dollars per hour, has a hard ceiling. There are only 24 hours in a day.
You can't make more time.
Exactly. Ownership is what shatters that ceiling. It involves creating or acquiring assets that generate value that work for you 24/7, whether you're actively working or not.
This really requires a fundamental mindset shift then, doesn't it? You have to stop thinking solely like an employee optimizing a salary and start thinking like a capitalist focused on building equity.
That's precisely the shift. The key question becomes, are you primarily working for money, or are you building things that make money for you?
And what kind of things are we talking about?
Could be many things. A stake in a business your own or someone else's. Intellectual property like a patent, a book, or software. A valuable audience you've built. Real estate that generates rent. These things have the potential to scale independently of your direct time input.
Galloway's own story with L2 is a perfect example of this, isn't it? Tell us about the sale of L2.
Yeah, L2 was his digital business intelligence firm. He built it up over several years, creating a really valuable platform and unique data assets. Eventually, he sold it. The reported figure was around $50 million.
Wow.
Now, that huge wealth creation event didn't happen because he billed more hours than anyone else. It happened because he built equity. He created a scalable asset, a piece of intellectual property that generated immense value even when he wasn't personally working. The sale was about cashing in on that ownership, not collecting a final paycheck.
Okay, but selling a company for $50 million feels unattainable for most people. The good news, though, is that the paths to some form of ownership seem much more accessible today, especially with digital tools.
Absolutely. That's the empowering part. You don't need millions in venture capital like maybe L2 did back then to start building equity today. The barriers are way lower.
So what are some of these modern paths he highlights?
Well, first, even within a traditional job, look for corporate equity. Negotiate for stock options or restricted stock units, RSUs. See if your company offers an employee stock ownership plan, ESOP. Even getting a small piece of the company you work for allows you to share in the value creation, moving you slightly from pure labor towards ownership.
Okay, that's one route. What else?
Second, and this is where the potential leverage is often highest for individuals starting out, building digital and intellectual assets.
Like what specifically?
Think about a niche newsletter with paying subscribers. An online course that solves a very specific problem for a specific audience, a specialized software tool or mobile app, A YouTube channel or podcast built around unique expertise that you can monetize through ads, sponsors, or products.
These are all forms of intellectual property you own.
Exactly. And the beauty is, once created, the marginal cost to distribute them to one more person or a million more people is often close to zero. They can scale globally and generate revenue while you're asleep or while you're focusing on creating the next asset.
So a side hustle isn't just about earning a few extra bucks doing gig work. The most powerful kind of side hustle is one that actually creates a piece of owned, scalable IP.
That's the key distinction. You're building an asset, not just working a second job. And this leads Galloway to pose that challenging question to everyone listening. Look at how you spend your time. Is the vast majority dedicated to building someone else's dream for a fixed paycheck? Or are you consciously, strategically allocating time, even if it's just a few hours a week initially, to building your own scalable equity?
Making that shift in perspective from laborer to owner feels like it could be genuinely transformative.
It really can be.
And of course, to build valuable assets, whether they're digital things or equity in a company, you first need valuable knowledge and skills. Which brings us neatly to pillar number 5, education, compounding your knowledge.
Right. Investing in yourself and your skills and knowledge is arguably the highest ROI investment you can make. It's the one asset Galloway says no one can take from you, and its potential compounding rate can absolutely dwarf market returns.
How so?
Well, the stock market might give you, say, 8–10% a year on average over the long run, but acquiring a single high-value skill like becoming proficient in AI implementation or mastering complex sales or learning to code effectively could potentially double or triple your earning potential relatively quickly. That gives you leverage far faster than just saving an extra few $100s a month.
And Galloway himself embodies this, right? As a professor and entrepreneur, he seems to constantly reinvent himself.
He does. His career path shows it. Getting an MBA, becoming a brand strategist, then a professor, then launching tech companies. He clearly believes in being a relentless student.
That phrase again, relentless.
Yeah. He argues that success in today's rapidly changing economy doesn't just go to the smartest people, it goes to the most adaptable, the ones who never stop learning and acquiring new, relevant skills. Because what's valuable today might be commoditized tomorrow.
Okay, but not all education is created equal in terms of financial return. Does he point to specific skills that offer particularly high ROI right now?
He does. He highlights a few high ROI skills that he sees as crucial for thriving in the modern economy.
Let's break those down. Why are they so valuable?
First up, sales. The ability to persuade, to articulate value, to create opportunities by selling whether it's a product, an idea, or even yourself in an interview or negotiation.
It's fundamental.
Absolutely. He argues every successful entrepreneur, CEO, even professor is fundamentally a great salesperson. It's like a universal multiplier. You can build the most brilliant thing, but if you can't sell it, communicate its value, it's worthless in the market.
Okay, sales. What's next?
Second, coding, or at least understanding the fundamentals of technology.
Do you need to become a full-blown software engineer?
Not necessarily, though that's obviously valuable. But in an age where basically every company is becoming a tech company in some way, having a basic literacy in how software is built, how data works, how digital systems operate, it gives you immense leverage. It allows you to manage technical resources better, to spot opportunities others miss, to automate tasks, to communicate effectively with technical teams. It multiplies your capabilities in a way that just being a user of technology doesn't.
Okay, sales, coding. What's the third one?
Third, storytelling.
The ability to craft a narrative.
Yes. He calls it a superpower for persuasion. We're fundamentally wired for stories, not just spreadsheets. In a world drowning in data, the person who can weave that data into a compelling, memorable, perhaps even emotional narrative, that's the person who influences decisions, inspires teams, attracts capital, and wins arguments. Data informs, but stories persuade.
Makes sense. And the fourth critical skill.
The fourth is negotiation.
This feels crucial for capturing the value you create with the other skills.
Exactly. Negotiation is the skill that ensures you actually keep a fair share of the value you generate. Think about salary negotiations, closing deals, setting prices, allocating resources. Mastering negotiation can dramatically change your financial outcomes over a lifetime. It's about earning more, paying less, and generally creating better results in almost every interaction.
So we learn these skills: sales, coding, storytelling, negotiation. But just reading books or taking courses isn't enough, is it? He stresses the application rule.
Critically important. Galloway is adamant. Knowledge consumed but never applied is just entertainment. It's trivia. It doesn't build wealth. You must take what you learn and immediately put it into practice.
How?
Build something with your new coding skill. Try out that new sales technique on a real prospect tomorrow. Write a story using the principles you just learned. Teach the negotiation tactic to a colleague. You have to actively turn that internal knowledge into external, real-world leverage that actually generates results, creates value, builds equity. That's the only way it compounds.
Okay, we've covered building the foundation and the growth multipliers. Now we need to talk defense. Because creating wealth is one thing, keeping it is another entirely. Pillar 6, diversification.
Yes, and this is a lesson history teaches brutally and repeatedly. Galloway sums it up nicely. Taking a lead can get you rich. Diversification is what helps you stay rich.
Explain that distinction.
Well, often the initial journey to wealth does require concentrated risk, right? Pouring all your energy into one startup, mastering one specific high-demand skill, that's the leap. But once you've actually accumulated some meaningful wealth, your primary goal has to shift from pure growth to preservation. And preservation demands spreading your risk.
And this isn't just about not putting all your money in one stock, is it? It's broader than that.
Much broader. True financial resilience requires diversification across at least 3 key areas: your investments, your income streams, and even your skills or identity.
Let's use that dot-com crash example again. How did diversification or lack thereof play out then?
It was a perfect tragic illustration. You had thousands of people, particularly in tech, who had not only their jobs, but also the vast majority of their life savings tied up in the stock of one single high-flying company, often their employer.
Double concentration risk.
Exactly. When the bubble burst, these companies imploded. So these folks didn't just lose their investment portfolio, they lost their job and their savings, sometimes their entire net worth, practically overnight. Devastating.
Whereas people who were diversified?
People who had followed basic diversification principles, maybe owning broad market index funds instead of single stocks, perhaps having some bonds or real estate alongside their equities, they certainly took a hit. Markets fell broadly, but they weren't wiped out. They weathered the storm. And critically, many of them still had capital available to potentially buy assets during the downturn, setting themselves up for the recovery.
That difference, having the option to wait it out versus being forced to sell at the absolute bottom, that's the real payoff of diversification, isn't it?
It's everything. It's insurance against ruin.
Yeah.
So let's break down those 3 areas Galloway emphasizes for diversification. First, obviously, in investing.
Standard advice.
Right, but crucial. Prioritize broad, low-cost index funds, funds that track the entire market or large segments of it, over trying to pick individual winning stocks. This gives you instant diversification across hundreds or thousands of companies, smoothing out the ride and protecting you if any single company fails.
Okay, diversify investments. Second area.
Second, in earning. Don't rely solely on one paycheck. You need to actively build multiple income streams.
Why is that so important?
Because your primary job is never truly secure. Layoffs happen, industries get disrupted, companies fail. If that main paycheck disappears suddenly, you need other sources of income as a buffer. This could be rental income from a property, royalties from a book or course you created, ad revenue from a blog or channel, or even income from a small consulting side business. Diversified income means you never face a catastrophic zero-income situation.
Provide stability and options. And the third area.
Third, and this ties back to education, is diversification in identity and skills.
How does that work?
Don't let your entire professional identity and skill set be tied to one narrow job title or one specific industry that could become obsolete. Cultivate a range of valuable skills. If you're a great marketer who also understands data analysis and basic project management, you're far more resilient and adaptable to economic shifts than someone who only knows traditional marketing. Diversifying your skills makes you more robust.
Okay, so diversification protects the wealth you build. But managing all this requires clear thinking and knowing your numbers. That leads us to pillar 7, the math of money.
Yes. This sounds almost too simple, but it's often the biggest blind spot for people. So many of us interact with money based on feelings, habits, or social pressure, not on cold, hard math.
We avoid looking at the numbers.
Exactly. But Galloway insists that wealth creation boils down to simple arithmetic. It's not some complex secret turd only Wall Street wizards understand. You just have to engage with the numbers honestly. His fundamental formula needs to be crystal clear in your mind. Earn more, plus spend less, plus invest the difference. That's it.
Okay, earn more. We'll get to that with hustle. Invest the difference. We covered that with time and compounding. But the middle part, spend less. That seems to be where many people stumble, largely because of what he calls lifestyle inflation.
Ah, yes, lifestyle inflation, the silent killer of wealth accumulation.
Explain that trap.
It's the very natural, very human tendency for your spending to rise to meet or even exceed your income as it increases. You get a raise, so you immediately upgrade your car. You get a bonus, so you book a fancier vacation or move to a bigger apartment.
It feels like you've earned it.
It does. But if every new dollar earned is immediately consumed by higher spending, you never actually increase the gap between earning and spending. And that difference is the only money you have available to invest and put to work, compounding for your future freedom. Earning more becomes pointless if you just inflate your lifestyle to match.
So consciously living below your means is essential.
It's non-negotiable if you want to build wealth. That's how you generate the surplus capital required to feed the compounding machine.
And this applies even to small, seemingly insignificant expenses, right? This is where we have to talk about the infamous $5 a day coffee habit. This example is so powerful because it illuminates opportunity cost.
It really does. Because $5 for a coffee feels trivial, doesn't it? It's a daily treat. What's the big deal?
Right, it's just $5.
But let's actually do the math, the opportunity cost math. $5 a day, every day, is about $1,800 a year. Now, what if, instead of spending that $1,800 on coffee, you invested it every year for, say, 30 years? And let's assume a pretty conservative average annual return of 7%.
Okay, $1,800 a year, 7% return for 30 years.
That seemingly tiny, negligible daily expense would compound into over $180,000.
Wow, $180,000 from skipping the fancy coffee shop.
It's not insignificant, is it? That's potentially a down payment on a house, a huge chunk of college tuition for a child, or enough capital to generate passive income that could cover a noticeable portion of your yearly living expenses later on.
It really reframes the decision. It's not about whether the coffee is worth $5 today. It's about whether that coffee is worth $180,000 of your future freedom.
Exactly. It forces you to weigh your immediate gratification against your long-term sovereignty. You have to understand what that money could have become.
So, to truly master this math, Galloway says we need to become the CFO of our own life. What does that look like in practice? What does that active management involve?
It means you can't be passive about your personal finances. It requires commitment and, crucially, tracking. First, you need to create a budget, not necessarily a super restrictive one, but one that intentionally directs where your money goes each month.
Know where it's going.
Know where it's going.
Oh.
Second, you have to track your income and expenses diligently. Use an app, a spreadsheet, whatever works, but you need clarity on the actual numbers. And third, maybe most importantly, you need to regularly calculate and monitor your net worth.
Assets minus liabilities.
Precisely. Your net worth is the ultimate scorecard in the wealth building game. Are your assets growing faster than your debts? You need to track that number monthly or quarterly and treat your personal balance sheet with the same serious, rational attention a business gives its financials. That clarity is what breeds control.
Okay, clarity helps build the offense. Now let's talk about the ultimate defense, the financial safety net. Pillar number 8, resilience.
Resilience is built on the cold, hard recognition that sometimes, despite your best plans, things will go wrong. Life happens. Markets crash, people get sick, jobs disappear.
Stuff happens.
Stuff happens. And Galloway argues that true wealth isn't just about having a lot. It's about having the ability to not lose it all when things fall apart. Resilience is about proactively preparing for those inevitable storms.
And he focuses on 2 main pillars for building this financial fortress, right?
Yes, 2 critical lines of defense. The first one is absolutely non-negotiable, the emergency fund.
How much should be in there?
He recommends setting aside 6 to 12 months' worth of essential living expenses. And crucially, this money needs to be kept in a safe, liquid, easily accessible account, like a high-yield savings account. It should not be invested in the stock market.
Why not invest it for growth?
Because its purpose isn't growth. Its purpose is insurance. It's sleep well at night insurance. If you lose your job tomorrow or face a major unexpected expense, this cash buffer gives you breathing room. It gives you the time, 6 months, 12 months, to make rational decisions, to find a new job, to navigate the crisis without being forced into desperation, like selling your long-term investments at a loss or taking on high-interest debt.
It buys you time and options when you might otherwise have none.
Exactly. It preserves your ability to stick to your long-term plan. The second critical pillar of resilience is formal insurance.
Health insurance, life insurance.
Yes. Things we often don't like paying for, but which are essential defensive assets. Proper health insurance is paramount, obviously. If you have dependents who rely on your income, adequate term life insurance is a must. And disability insurance, which protects your income if you're unable to work due to illness or injury, is often overlooked but incredibly important.
Why are these so critical for resilience?
Because these types of catastrophic events, a major health crisis, a premature death, a disabling accident, can generate expenses or income losses so large they can instantly wipe out decades of diligent saving and investing. You simply cannot outsave the potential cost of a multi-million-dollar medical bill or years of lost income. Insurance transfers that catastrophic risk away from you.
Looking back at the 2008 financial crisis offers a really stark contrast here, doesn't it, between the resilient and the vulnerable?
It really does. Think about individuals going into that crisis. Those who had built financial resilience, meaning they had manageable debt levels, they had cash reserves in their emergency fund, their investments were diversified, they had choices.
What kind of choices?
They could afford to wait out the housing market collapse without being forced to sell their home at a loss. They had the cushion to switch careers if their industry was hit hard. Some even had the capital and the nerve to buy assets like stocks or real estate when prices were deeply depressed.
While those who weren't resilient.
Those who were over-leveraged, maybe with huge mortgages relative to their income, lots of high-interest consumer debt, living paycheck to paycheck with no emergency fund. They were completely stripped of options. They were often forced into devastating situations: foreclosure, bankruptcy, selling assets at the worst possible time. They lost everything.
So resilience, built through things like an emergency fund, proper insurance, and low debt, ultimately provides freedom and choice precisely when things are toughest.
That's the core idea. Preparation beats brilliance when the storm hits.
Okay, resilience is the defense. Now let's talk about the engine again, the offense. Color number 9, hustle. This is about the work required to get rich in the first place.
Right. And Galloway's very clear on this. There's really no sustainable path to passive wealth without an initial, often intense, period of strategic, active effort. He calls hustle the backbone of financial success.
So much for just sitting back and letting the money roll in from day one.
Yeah, we live in an era that loves to glorify passive income and stories of overnight success, but Galloway pushes back hard against that fantasy. The reality, he argues, is that valuable assets, the things that eventually generate passive income, are almost always built through focused, purposeful, and often very demanding work up front.
It's a critical counterpoint. You have to be active, maybe intensely active for a period, to build the things that allow you to become passive later. It's an investment of your energy, not just your money.
Precisely. And he makes this point about talent versus sheer effort. His assertion is something like, talent might get you noticed, but hustle is what gets you rich. He observes that time and again, people with maybe less natural genius, but who possess incredible tenacity, consistency, and a capacity for focused hard work often outperform those with greater raw potential who just don't put in the same level of directed effort. It's like compounding applied to work ethic.
So this hustle phase is strategic. It's the idea of work hard now so you can work less later.
Exactly. It's about defining a period. Maybe it's your 20s and 30s. Maybe it's the first 5 years of a new business where you intentionally operate at a higher intensity. The goal of this phase is to rapidly build the skills, the reputation, the network, and critically the assets, like savings, investments, or business equity, that will generate returns and provide freedom for decades to come.
But the key word there seems to be strategic. Hustle isn't just being busy for the sake of being busy, right?
Absolutely not. Hustle without direction is just a fast path to burnout. It has to be purposeful. So how do you apply it strategically? He suggests a few things. First, double down on your job, especially early in your career. Go significantly beyond the minimum requirements. Volunteer for tough projects. Build a reputation as someone who is reliable, proactive, and delivers exceptional results. This is what opens doors to promotions, significant raises, mentorship, and valuable network connections, all of which accelerate your earning potential.
Okay, excel in your primary role. What else?
Second, build side projects. Use your non-work hours strategically. Don't just consume entertainment. Use some of that time to invest in building your own equity. Test out that business idea, launch that digital product we talked about, build that monetizable skill or audience. This diversifies your income and puts you in the owner's seat.
And third, always keep it strategic.
Yes, always be strategic. Your hustle must be relentlessly focused on high-leverage activities. Are these extra hours directly contributing to one of your top 5 goals? Is this side project actually designed to build scalable equity, or is it just a time-consuming hobby? Is the extra effort at work positioning you for a specific promotion or skill gain, or is it just making someone else look good? You have to constantly ask those questions.
Okay, but I have to raise a point of tension here. We've just gone through 9 pillars that sound incredibly demanding. Intense focus, emotional stoicism, relentless education, building ownership, strategic diversification, managing the math, building resilience, and now this intense strategic hustle.
It's a lot.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah.
If Pillar 10 is about prioritizing love and purpose, how on earth do you maintain this kind of intense hustle phase without completely sacrificing your health, your sanity, and those crucial relationships? It feels like a direct conflict.
That is the absolute essential conflict, and it's a tension Galloway acknowledges. It forces us to see that hustle, as he defines it, must be a strategic, timed phase. It cannot be a permanent state of being.
So it has an expiration date.
It has to. The framework implicitly demands that the intense effort is temporary and specifically targeted at achieving escape velocity, building the capital, assets, and skills needed to eventually buy back your time and gain control. The intense hustle is the investment you make so that you can later prioritize love and purpose more fully.
And the 10th pillar acts as the governor, the fail-safe.
Exactly. Love and purpose serves as the ultimate compass. The moment your hustle starts to irrevocably damage your health or your most important relationships, the entire equation becomes meaningless. At that point, the strategy has failed and you must immediately recalibrate. The hustle was supposed to serve the larger goal, not destroy it.
Okay, that makes sense. Which brings us finally to that crucial 10th pillar, love and purpose, the ultimate return on investment.
Yes, this is the pillar that asks the fundamental so what question. After all the focus, the discipline, the saving, the hustling, the accumulating, why? What's the actual point of it all?
What's the end game?
And Galloway's conclusion here is profound and unequivocal. Wealth without meaning is worthless.
It directly confronts that potential tragedy, doesn't it? The person who climbs the mountain of financial success only to find they're completely alone, unhealthy, or miserable at the summit.
Precisely. He talks about the hollow victory of achieving massive financial success, but doing so at the expense of your family, your friendships, your physical health, your mental well-being, your basic sense of peace. That's not success. That's failure in a different currency.
And he shares a very personal story related to this, doesn't he? About his own early career.
He does, and it's quite vulnerable. He admits that early on he was so intensely consumed by work-building companies, the demands of academia, that he missed irreplaceable moments with his young children. He was physically present sometimes, perhaps, but mentally absent, consumed by the hustle.
And realizing that must have been painful.
Deeply so, by his account. And that painful realization forced a fundamental, non-negotiable shift in his priorities and, more importantly, his actions.
It wasn't just a mental shift, right? He applied the same rigor to this as he did to business.
Exactly. This is the key insight. He didn't just decide family was important. He started scheduling family time into his calendar with the same seriousness, the same inviolable commitment as he would schedule a critical board meeting or a major client presentation.
Treating it like a non-negotiable appointment.
Yes. It wasn't something squeezed in if time permits. It was a fixed priority, fiercely protected. That intentional scheduling, that commitment, is what's required to protect the truly invaluable long-term assets of deep relationships and personal well-being.
That's such a powerful way to think about it. We need to treat our relationships, our health, our purpose, as critical, non-liquid assets that demand active investment and protection, just like our financial portfolio.
That's the integration. So the actionable steps here are about integrating meaning into the entire wealth equation. First, consciously treat relationships as critical assets. This means intentionally scheduling, prioritizing, and fiercely protecting quality time for your loved ones, partners, children, close friends. Recognize that these connections are often the primary source of real joy, resilience, and lasting happiness. Things money fundamentally cannot buy.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, strive to find purpose in your work, or at least align it with your core values as much as possible. When your work feels meaningful, when it contributes to something you believe in, it becomes a source of energy and fulfillment rather than just a draining obligation you endure to fund your real life outside of work.
Easier said than done sometimes, but a worthy goal.
Definitely. And finally, perhaps most importantly, you must define your rich life in terms that go far beyond just a bank balance. What does true success, true wealth actually look like for you? Is it maximum freedom and autonomy? Deep connection with family and community? Making a significant impact on a cause you care about? Creative expression? Service to others?
You need your own
You
definition.
need your own definition. And then all the financial goals, all the algebra we've discussed, the earning, saving, investing, hustling, must be clearly and consciously aligned with achieving that deeper, personally meaningful definition of a rich life. Because ultimately, wealth is just a tool. It has to serve a life of meaning and purpose. Otherwise, you might solve the financial equation perfectly, but still end up failing the human one. Hashtag tag tag outro.
Wow. Okay, that has been an incredibly thorough, really holistic, deep dive into Galloway's framework. It's so much more than just a financial plan, isn't it? It's like a compounding system for designing a life.
It really aims to be. Wealth, in this view, is the combined, compounded result of executing these 10 interconnected principles, from the hard-edged discipline of focus and hustle to the clear-eyed rationality of the math of money, and all of it ultimately guided by and serving love and purpose.
And what really stands out is the message of agency, of empowerment.
Absolutely. I think the most powerful takeaway, especially for anyone feeling maybe overwhelmed by finance or feeling like they've started too late or made too many mistakes, is this final emotional truth Galloway offers. You are not stuck. You are not behind. You are just one decision away from starting your wealth journey.
I like that. Your past doesn't have to dictate your future.
Exactly. Your lack of savings yesterday or the mistakes you made last year, they don't define your potential if you decide to start implementing these principles, even just one of them, today.
Okay, so the framework is laid out. The variables of the equation are clear. We've hopefully moved beyond just passively learning about it to getting some real clarity. Now comes the hard part.
Committed implementation. Action. And maybe the best way to start is to circle back to the very first pillar we talked about. Focus. Don't feel like you have to tackle all 10 pillars perfectly starting tomorrow. That's overwhelming.
Pick one thing.
Pick one thing. Ask yourself right now, what is the one single specific actionable step you will commit to taking today, maybe even in the next hour, that tangibly moves you just a little bit closer to solving your personal wealth equation?
Maybe it's deleting one distracting app. Maybe it's setting up that first automatic transfer to savings. Maybe it's scheduling that non-negotiable family dinner.
Whatever it is, just start there.
Yeah.
Because that single focus decision, that first step, holds the potential to begin compounding into the freedom and the rich life, however you define it, that you're seeking. Go solve it.